The entire cell block froze the moment the doors slammed shut. The alarm had been blaring for almost a minute, echoing off the concrete walls. Everyone knew what it meant. The three biggest prison groups, the Crips, the Bloods, and the Aryan Brotherhood, had all moved at the same time. Officers rushed down the tier, shouting orders, but the men inside the cells weren't yelling, fighting, or making noise. They were silent. Too silent. And then, from the second tier, a folded note slid under a cell door. A single message, passed from one group to another. A message that would decide what happened next inside the prison. A message that could change who controlled the entire facility. But before the officers could reach it, someone else did. And when he opened that message, his face changed completely, and that is when everything truly began. Now the question is, how did three rival groups all agree on the same plan? And what was inside that message that made a grown man go pale? To understand that, we need to go back to how it all started. When Marcus Evans arrived at Red Ridge Correctional Facility, he thought the stories he heard were just rumors, tales about how gangs ran everything from phones to food to where you could stand in the yard. He didn't believe it until his first morning inside. The second he stepped out of his cell, a tall man named Raymond tapped his shoulder. Raymond wasn't loud, and he didn't threaten him. Instead, he just asked one question: "Who's looking out for you?" Marcus didn't understand. Raymond nodded toward three tables in the chow hall. One was filled with men wearing blue shirts and blue ink, the Crips. Another table, dressed mostly in red tones, the Bloods. And across from them, sitting stiff and watching everything, were members of the Aryan Brotherhood. Each group sat in its own space. Everyone else stayed far away. Raymond told him quietly that this wasn't about colors. It was about control. Not fights, not chaos. Control. Who controlled the phones? Who controlled store items? Who controlled movement in the yard? Who controlled who could talk to who? Marcus laughed at first. "The officers control the prison," he said. Raymond just looked at him with pity. "You'll see," he replied. A few days later, Marcus learned what he meant. He was waiting in line to use the phone, and a man named Carter stepped in front of him. Marcus tapped his shoulder, trying to be polite. "I was next," he said. Carter smiled. "You were next in your head," he said calmly. "But on this phone? I'm next." Marcus started to argue, until someone behind him whispered, "He's with the Crips. Leave it." For the first time, Marcus realized the truth. The officers might run the building, but the gangs ran the people. The Bloods had their own rules. They didn't run the phones, but they controlled most of the trading, small legal items like snacks, soap, stamps. They had a whole system, almost like a tiny economy. And if someone owed them and didn't pay, the officers would step in. Not because they were protecting the Bloods, but because they were trying to prevent trouble. The Aryan Brotherhood didn't talk much, didn't smile, and didn't mix. But they were organized. Very organized. If they said someone couldn't sit somewhere, he didn't sit there. If they said someone shouldn't talk to someone, he didn't talk to them. Their power came from tight structure and quiet discipline. The strangest part? Most of the time, the groups didn't fight. They made deals. They traded. They kept the peace, but only the peace they controlled. Then one afternoon, something unusual happened. A shipment of commissary items came in short. Dozens of people didn't get what they had paid for. Normally, this would be a problem for the officers, but not today. The Crips blamed the Bloods. The Bloods blamed the Aryan Brotherhood. And the Aryan Brotherhood blamed both groups. Everyone knew the truth. Someone inside the prison had taken items before they reached the inmates. Someone wanted to spark trouble. For a week, tension grew. People whispered in the yard. Officers stayed alert, watching from every angle. But nothing happened. Not yet. Then, on a quiet Wednesday morning, the unit doors rolled open, and the three most respected men from each group walked out of their cells at the exact same moment. And that's when the alarms went off. Not because something bad had happened, but because something big was about to. The officers were rushing. The inmates weren't moving. The message sliding under that second-tier door was the first sign of something huge, something nobody expected. And just when Marcus thought things couldn't get any worse, Raymond whispered to him, with a calm voice that made it even scarier, They're choosing sides today. And that's when a new extreme event hit, one that would change everything inside Red Ridge. The air inside Red Ridge felt heavier than usual. Everyone could feel something big was happening. The gangs never moved at the same time unless they were planning something important. Marcus stood close to Raymond, trying to understand why today felt different. Officers lined the walkways, watching every inch of the unit. The three leaders, one from the Crips, one from the Bloods, and one from the Aryan Brotherhood, stood in the same row of cells for the first time anyone could remember. They didn't speak. They didn't look at each other. But the silence around them was louder than yelling. The message that slid under the door earlier had already been passed to an officer. He held it with gloves, staring at it like it was something dangerous. Marcus watched his eyes shift from left to right as he read it. Then the officer looked up slowly, almost in shock, and whispered something to his partner. Both of them hurried down the stairs toward the control room. Raymond nudged Marcus. "That note," he said quietly, "decides who runs the whole place." Marcus's heart started beating faster. But why now? Why today? Raymond shook his head. Someone messed with the system. Commissary items don't just go missing. Someone wanted the leaders to meet. Someone wanted a change. Before Marcus could ask more, the officers' radios crackled loudly. A voice spoke from the control room. "Unit C, prepare for full lockdown. Now." The doors slammed shut again. Every inmate stepped back from the railings. The officers moved quickly but not aggressively. They seemed confused, unsure of what they were dealing with. And then something surprising happened. Instead of yelling or resisting, the leaders of all three groups stepped forward together. Focused. Like they had already agreed on everything. The Crip leader spoke first. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. "We're not here to cause trouble." The Bloods leader nodded. "We're here because someone stole from all of us." Then the Aryan Brotherhood leader added something nobody expected. "We want the person who planned this. Nothing else." The officers froze. This wasn't normal. Rival groups never stood together or spoke in one voice. Something bigger was happening, something about fairness, not chaos. Marcus felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He could tell this wasn't about gang war. This was about control, trust, and who was brave enough to face the truth. For a moment, the whole unit stayed still. You could almost hear the officers thinking. Then the warden himself walked into the block. Everyone stepped back. Even the gang leaders straightened up when he arrived. He held the folded message in his hand. "I read this," the warden said, "and I understand why you're standing here. Someone tried to create trouble between your groups. Someone wanted a reaction." He paused, making sure everyone heard each word. "But it wasn't any of you." A whisper moved through the cells. The warden raised the message. This was written by an inmate who wanted influence. Someone who thought chaos would give him power. Someone acting alone. Raymond whispered to Marcus, "A lone wolf. That's rare." The warden continued. "We already found the person who wrote the message. He admitted everything. He took the commissary items. He planted the rumors. He wanted you to turn on each other." The leaders didn't look surprised. They had already suspected it. Then the warden said something nobody expected. "You three groups showed more discipline today than the man who tried to start this." The room stayed silent. Not angry, thoughtful. The warden looked at each leader and added, "This ends here. No retaliation. No deals. No meetings without staff present. We return to normal. Understood?" Slowly, each leader nodded. To everyone's shock, the groups returned to their cells without arguing, without pushing, without even looking at each other. The unit became quiet again, not the dangerous kind of quiet, but the calm kind. Raymond let out a long breath. "You just saw something rare," he told Marcus. "Control isn't always about fear. Sometimes it's about staying calm when someone wants chaos." Marcus stared at the empty walkway where the leaders had stood. "So who controls the prison now?" Raymond smiled slightly. "The same people who always did, the officers. The rules. The system. Gangs only control parts of people's lives here because inmates let them. But today, the truth won. Marcus thought about everything he had seen. The power, the silence, the deals, the tension. And now, the surprising peace. Red Ridge wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe in the normal sense. But for the first time since he arrived, Marcus felt like he understood it. It wasn't a world run by chaos. It was a world run by influence. And today, influence chose calm over conflict. As the unit lights dimmed for evening count, Marcus heard Raymond's final words. In here, power changes fast. But respect lasts longer. And with that, the long day ended, not with a battle, but with understanding.